time for the Morning Watch with host Reverend Dr. Dallin Toussaint.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dallin Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you're overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube live. In the first watch today, dengue alert. In the second watch, suicide and euthanasia, ethical, social, and spiritual implications. For our social media question, we ask, what do you think happens to the person who commits suicide? Please share your responses on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM, and also whether by post or voice note to WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
This morning's I quote, if you don't have wrinkles, you haven't laughed enough. Phyllis Diller. Really?
Siobhan, you have on your video? So
Yes, it's on.
The viewers can see if you have wrinkles on your face.
I know, right?
I'm not seeing any, Siobhan. I'm not seeing any at all.
So this is not a true I quote, eh?
It could not be true for Siobhan. No, I have some, so it's true for me.
Oh, okay, right.
Oh boy, the Bible said laughter is as a good medicine. So let's keep on laughing in spite of all that's going on, eh?
I tell you, my brother. I tell you.
Okay. The first watch will be back after this break.
CIBC First Caribbean reminds you that our ABM cards will be deactivated on September 30, 2021 and upgraded to the Visa debit card. Your Visa debit card does everything your ABM card does and more. Use it at any ABM and to shop locally, internationally, and online with funds directly from your savings or checking account. Visit CIBCFCIB.com to sign up for a CIBC First Caribbean Visa debit card today.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at Genac.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
Genac.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
Choose Life International presents its 13th annual World Suicide Prevention Day seminar under the theme, Creating Hope Through Action. Join us on Friday, September 10th, 2021, and hear from our selection of accomplished speakers on topics such as COVID-19 psychology and suicide risk, best practices for suicide prevention in the new normal, and many more. For more information, visit our website at www.chooselifeintl.org.
DIGICEL. First in a class when you have Digicel. School as prime bundle. That's right, with your educational website, make you bright. Head to the top of your class with your first Digicel SIM and a school as prime bundle. Get over 142 gigabytes of data so you can have access to educational sites, social media platforms, Digicel apps, and more for as low as $1,500 for 28 days. Get a school as prime bundle with your first Digicel SIM card. Visit the Digicel store today. DIGICEL.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, weeks ago, in an Observer report entitled Dengue Warning, the Minister of Health stated, and I quote, "I urge the population cautious as we go into the next number of months and to look at the mosquito breeding sites around your homes. Destroy those sites and be careful as you monitor the potential threat of dengue." End of quote. Indeed, mosquitoes and mosquito bites are serious matters, especially when there is the potential of a dengue outbreak within a pandemic. To discuss these issues and concerns, we have joining us this morning Dr. Shireen Huntley Jones, medical entomologist, and Dr. Donovan White, alternative medicine doctor. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Morning.
Yes, good morning.
Dr. White, are you with us?
Yeah,
yes, good morning to you both. Good to have you both with us. Let me begin with you, Dr. Huntley Jones. Who is a medical entomologist, and how many of you exist in Jamaica today?
Well, we just lost her. I'm trying to get her back.
Oh, she's not with us. Okay, let me go straight to Dr. White. Dr. White?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, great. What really is dengue, and what are the signs and symptoms of the disease?
Dengue basically is another type of flu, but it's called dengue because of the way in which it is different from most of the other flus, because it is spread through the bite of a mosquito, the Aedes aegypti, and there are like several viruses that are associated with dengue. Literally about 4 different viruses that they refer to as the dengue viruses. But it is of significance because it can spread rapidly in a population, and it can be very devastating. Most of the people who have dengue...
So you said there are 4?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. White.
There are like about 400 million cases of dengue every year. And out of that 4 million, probably about 1 million may in fact have symptoms. But among those who have symptoms, you can have symptoms that can be literally very lethal to the person. So it is something that we have to be concerned about, and it's something that we can in fact do a lot to prevent, because by controlling our mosquito breeding sites, we can reduce the spread. But whenever a mosquito bites a person who has the virus and then bites another person, it can pass the virus onto the other person. So that is the normal spread.
Yeah, so they go over the symptoms again, please, Dr. White.
Well, I didn't go over them before.
Okay, because I thought I missed it in terms of the connectivity.
The symptoms are flu-like symptoms. You can end up having like fever, but that's why they refer to it as dengue fever, because fever is literally one of the primary things. But you can end up having stuffy nose, headaches, muscle pains, joint pains. Are major characteristic of it. Usually when people have it, they tend to have a lot of joint pains, vomiting, diarrhea, and the cold-like symptoms as well. But the fever and the pains are probably the most significant ones. You can also end up having a rash with dengue. And in some very severe cases, you may end up having what we call dengue hemorrhagic fever, where people end up having bleeding. And the bleeding can be from anywhere. It can be bleeding under the skin, it can be bleeding in the stool, it can be bleeding in the lung, it can be bleeding anywhere. But we refer to that one as dengue. That's not a nice type of dengue to have. It can be very devastating. But it's good thing about it is it's not that common. The common one is just the basic flu symptoms and the fever and so
on. Are there similar signs to COVID-19 in any way?
Both of them are flu-like symptoms. So you can have flu-like symptoms, and most of what you have with COVID is flu-like symptoms. And they are common for literally most viruses. A cough, a cold, sinus drainage, stuffiness, headaches, pains. And that's common to so many other conditions. So
Yeah,
it's
that's it.
difficult for us to just sit down and say, oh, based on your symptoms, you have this or you have that. We usually
Yes.
have to confirm it by some type of a blood test to ensure that that is what we're dealing with.
Okay. All right. I gather Dr. Huntley Jones has rejoined us.
Mhm.
Yes, hello, good morning. So
Yeah.
sorry
Go on.
earlier
Yeah.
on.
Good morning, Doc. Yes.
Yes.
I was asking you initially, who is a medical entomologist, and how many of you are in Jamaica?
Ah, well, entomology is the study of insects, yes. The field of medical entomology zooms in or focuses on those insects that are able to transmit diseases um, by acting as vectors from one human to the next. So a medical entomologist is an individual who specializes in vector-borne disease control and management.
Mm-hmm.
And there are about two of us in the Ministry of Health now so trained.
Two, you said two?
Yes, in the field of medical entomology. We do have a lot of entomologists in Jamaica. At the university, we have entomologists in agriculture, but medical entomologists, we have currently two now formally trained.
So the distinction in medical as against an entomologist, what's that about?
Right. So whereas an entomologist generally focuses on all insects, medical entomologists tend to just focus on those insects that are able to transmit diseases. So we zoom in and narrow our focus to particular insects. In veterinary entomology, they would focus on those insects that are able to transmit zoonoses. And then you have something called forensic entomology. Again, zooming in on those insects that would cause myiasis and so forth. So it's just different branches of entomology, but with each you're focusing on particular insects as opposed to the entire gamut, which is a lot.
Yes. There's much talk, Dr. Huntley Jones, about the Aedes aegypti mosquito. How is it related to dengue and other diseases?
All right. So the Aedes aegypti mosquito is the main vector of dengue or arboviruses in the Caribbean. I say arboviruses because it's a group of them. There's dengue that we know very well. There is chikungunya that we also know very well. There's Zika virus. So the Aedes aegypti is the main vector for all those three viruses. And the Aedes aegypti mosquito is endemic in Jamaica, and oftentimes will be found occurring in very large numbers. And so the country is always at risk for the transmission of these viruses that the Aedes aegypti is able to transmit.
And you mentioned Zika, you mentioned chikungunya, right? It's still in Jamaica, those diseases?
Oh, yes. In fact, my memory serves me. So chikungunya came towards the end of 2013, and Zika was introduced in 2016. And they have now become what we call endemic, meaning from time we continue to have transmission of both these diseases in addition to dengue. But what is happening now, we're having low levels of transmission. So when the diseases were originally introduced, then we had a massive outbreak. The diseases became endemic, and now we have low levels of transmission that we continue to monitor and implement control against, because we do not want another outbreak of any of them.
Yes.
So along with dengue, Zika and Chika are now endemic.
Yes. Dr. White, are you still with us? Not seeing him on the screen. Okay. Dr. Huntley Jones, you mentioned we're talking about the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. How are they identified? All
right. So I want to let your listeners know that in Jamaica we have 71 species of mosquitoes. There's quite a lot of different looking types of mosquitoes. Yes, 71 species.
Wow.
But the Aedes aegypti is very peculiar in that it is usually the one that you're going to find in and around your home, especially on the inside. And it looks, I always tell my students, it looks like a little black and white salt and pepper mosquito. Very beautiful when it's just emerged. And so very small, with very, white silvery spots, white plus silvery spots on the body. But a mosquito is very small, eh? So it's going to be very difficult for persons to identify those physical features. But what I also tell persons, if you have containers in and around your home, and you have those little wigglers, people used to call them wigglers or worms, so little things that are wiggling in your containers, in your flower pots or in your drums.
Tell you what, doctor, I'm so sorry. We're at a break. Hold that thought, we'll be right back, okay?
Good.
This is Love 101 716.
Stay informed and keep up to date with all the happenings locally, regionally, and internationally. Follow My Jamaica Today on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Also check us out at JamaicaToday.com as we bring you all the information you need wherever you are, with fearless and factual reporting on politics, world news, business, entertainment, sports, and lifestyle. It's My Jamaica Today, Jamaica's first digital media house, only 3 clicks away.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at genac.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
GENAC.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
2021 high school graduates across Jamaica. Be a part of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information's groundbreaking sixth form pathway program at the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean UCC and benefit from free tuition for 2 years for most programs. Through this sixth form program, high school graduates can transition to grade 12 to earn an associate degree or other vocational certifications after grade 13. Then, if you wish, seamlessly complete your UCC bachelor's degree in just 2 more years. Visit ucc.edu.jm for details or call us at 876-906-3000. UCC, fostering leadership and innovation.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. JN Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And in this, the first watch, we're looking on the whole matter of dengue. And we have online Dr. Shireen Huntley Jones, medical entomologist, and Dr. Donovan White, alternative medicine doctor. Dr. Huntley Jones, before the break, you were telling us about these 71 species of mosquitoes, and in particular the Aedes aegypti.
Right, yes, indeed. So, as I was saying before, the Aedes aegypti is easily identified because it is going to be that one that is usually found breeding in and around the home in containers. Mm-hmm. So when we look in our drums, there are sometimes some little things wiggling in it, of darkish grayish color. And that would be the immature stage of the Aedes aegypti mosquito. Oftentimes people, householders tell me that they're worms, or they call them wigglers, but they do not identify that that is the immature stage of the Aedes aegypti mosquito. This mosquito only breeds in containers. Any container that is able to find to lay its eggs in is going to do so. And so, in identifying it, just walk around your home. Anything that little thing that looks worm-like, that is wiggling, is usually the immature stage of the Aedes aegypti mosquito.
Yes. Well, let me just double check. Dr. White, are you still with us? All right, we're having some technical issues with Dr. White. Still with you then, Dr. Huntley Jones. I'm sort of fascinated about these mosquitoes. I must tell you, as I'm sure you are in many ways, right? How do we control them? I mean, what do you recommend in that regard?
All right. So, because of the behavior of this particular mosquito, it's one that we describe that is domestic. Again, because it is found in and around where humans dwell. So it lives very close to humans. It doesn't go far at all. Literature shows us that the flight range of the Aedes aegypti mosquito usually 400 meters or less. So it stays pretty close to human habitation. And so usually for the Aedes aegypti mosquito, the main method of control is really for persons to actively look for and destroy those breeding sites that may be in and around their homes, their workplaces, places of play. So that is the main strategy, looking for and destroying those breeding sites. I want your listeners to understand very clearly now, because we have several species of mosquito. When rain falls and there's groundwater settled, or there's some water in the drain, the Aedes aegypti mosquito will not breed in that water. When rainfall and people say, then get cup and water on the ground and the ministry not doing anything. That is the breeding site for the Aedes aegypti mosquito. It's not going to breed in the drain water. The only time you'll find this mosquito breeding in the drain water is when you have a container that was thrown in the drain and there's water, water is allowed to settle in that container. Then you'll have breeding in the container. But if it's just a plain, ordinary drain water, she will not breed. She will not lay her eggs there. So I want persons to understand that very clearly. I'm not sure that persons are registering that, because sometimes when we do get into a dengue situation, persons say, they need to come clean the drain, and there's a big body of water in my backyard. That is not that's not the breeding site of the Aedes aegypti mosquito. That's why we say community participation is the greatest strategy. It's every householder search around their homes inside and out for containers that will hold water. We're talking about things like old tires, pet containers, old things thrown around the backyard, old shoes, old fridge. Every Jamaican tend to have a 45-gallon drum in their backyard. It's like a tradition. Even in areas that we find that does not have a water problem, everybody have a 45-gallon drum. Usually uncovered, usually collecting water, and it is our main breeding site in Jamaica. So if persons can get into the habit, and we cannot emphasize it enough, of searching their yards once per week and just looking for those breeding sites, we will, by and large, control the Aedes aegypti mosquito and potentially put me out of a job.
All right. Dr. White?
Sure.
Right.
You hear me now?
Yes, I hear you now. Right.
Okay, good.
Not sure they'll put you out of a job so easily, but Dr. White, can persons be reinfected with dengue, and what are the do's and don'ts in regards to caring for yourself, dealing with the concerns associated with dengue?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. But the beauty about dengue is that because we don't have a vaccine for dengue, then what happens is that the body's natural immunity is going to come into play. And natural immunity is always wonderful. Once natural immunity comes into play, chances are, even if you're exposed to the thing again, your body will know exactly what to do. Natural immunity is far better and safer than the vaccine type of immunity. So that's a plug for natural immunity. But then again, to explain a little bit more about natural immunity is to understand that when the body's immune system is in peak function, that is how you prevent not just dengue, but most of the other illnesses that you can come across. And you protect your immune system by literally not doing the things that make your body acidic or making your body toxic. And here we're talking about things that give your body good oxygenation. So fresh air, fantastic. Here we're talking about the use of foods that are helping your body's immune system, the use of natural whole foods, fresh fruits, vegetables, that sort of thing. Because when you're having that kind of food, your body is not really encouraging infections to grow. In contrast, when people have a lot of foods that I refer to as dead foods, foods like, for example, sugar. Sugar is a dead product. Sugar is highly acidic. Sugar literally feeds and allows infections to breed. But look at our diets. Our diets are so rich in sugar. So when you put sugar in, especially sugar as a processed refined product, then you're literally weakening your body's own immune system. So there are simple things you can do just by even changing your lifestyle that actually helps you to be in a better position to fight not just against dengue, but against most of these so-called viral infections.
What about mosquito sprays? What's your take on that, Dr. White?
All right,
And
mosquito
repellents.
sprays. Well, I'm sure Dr. Huntley Jones will agree with me in this department. The whole business about mosquito sprays. They spray the mosquito, yes, to kill the mosquito. But unfortunately, we don't emphasize that whatever you're doing to the mosquito, you're doing to yourself. Because if you're spraying the place sufficiently, and I know people who spray, relentlessly. In fact, I've had a patient who had a problem with a dog, and she was so upset about the dog having mange that she got something and she started to spray the dog. And the next thing I know, she was end up in my office, could hardly breathe. Because the spray was damaging her the same way it was damaging the dog, but she didn't realize that.
And the same goes for the mosquito coils and all of that, I would think. Any repellent?
Well, these are abnormal substances, and if you can minimize the use by doing more practical things like using a mosquito screen, and a simple technique that works is to put like fever grass on your floor. When you're walking on the fever grass, if you're walking on the floor and the fever grass is on the floor, each time you walk, you're actually releasing some of the pheromones from the fever grass, and it is a natural insect repellent.
Hold on, Doctor White. You mean put the fever grass in the living room and walk on it?
Anyway you want to put it, it's a choice you make, you know. It's a lifestyle. I've seen it done in other countries, and that's why I brought it up. It was really fantastic. It was new to me, but it was fantastic. Because as you walk up and down, exactly, but you're releasing the odors from the grass, and insects stay out of your house whenever that is happening.
Hold on, let me just bring in Dr. Huntley Jones. Dr. Huntley Jones, what's your take on these things? Fever grass.
All right, so there are a lot of plants that have pheromones or chemicals that act as natural repellents to mosquitoes, and fever grass is one so documented. In fact, lots of cultures, and certainly in Jamaica, persons would use it to make tea. They would soak the fever grass in water and just use that water to rub it on their skin, just as a natural repellent. So there is documented evidence that it does work. Yes, I just wanted to add something to what Doc said quite accurately, that indeed dengue, once you've gotten dengue, the immune system kicks in and you do not get that dengue again. The unfortunate side of that is that there are 4 serotypes to dengue. And so there's what we call dengue type 1, dengue type 2, dengue type 3, dengue type 4. And so an individual who gets dengue type 1 will indeed not get it, dengue type 1 again in their lifetime. However, they can get dengue type 2, dengue type 3, dengue type 4. And so in fact, an individual can get dengue up to 4 times. But as Doc said, once you've gotten a particular type, the immune system kicks in, and to that type, so you're not able to get it. Another thing I'd want to add to that is that...
Yes, half a minute.
Half a minute. I want Jamaicans to understand. In our last outbreak, we had 81 deaths from dengue. Very significant for us as a country, a small country. The first in our history since 1977. What it means for us that dengue is taking on a more critical clinical profile. Our country has been exposed to all 4 serotypes, and once we have had all 4 serotypes, we are predisposed to the more severe form of dengue. And so we really want persons to get that understanding and to begin to deal with the mosquitoes, because it's no longer just a flu-like illness, but we are having increased hospitalization with every outbreak and unfortunately increase in death. And so we want persons to begin to take actions against mosquitoes.
Thanks, Dr. Huntley Jones. Now we know why they call her the mosquito lady, right? And now Dr. Donovan White, we call him the fever grass doctor. Thank you both for joining us.
I'm gonna have to publish something about that.
Have a blessed day.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Now with no processing fees and no down payment, it's time to open the door to your own sweet home. The time by JN Bank is
7:31 on the Son of Love 101.
When we think of inflation, we think about the things that we can't afford as prices rise and the dollar struggles. But the flip side of our dollar doing less is foreign currency doing more. As the value of the US dollar climbs, investing in US dollar products can add a boost to your portfolio. With our low interest rate environment, savvy investors can secure attractive loans for real estate investments and favorable returns.
Visit barita.com/opportunities for more growth coach insights.
Did you say so we need and everybody know this? Awesome, full of cash and prizes. Million every week, make a running for the niceness. Call 142 for the richness. DJ, bounce. Digicel and make a rich together. DJ, bounce.
Make we rich together with Digicel. Just call 142 or dial *142 $ for a chance to win your share of $42 million in cash and prizes. Each entry costs $100. From now until September 14th, make we rich together with Digicel.
Authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting, Gaming, and Lotteries Act.
49 years later and still going strong. Under the Law helps you to know your rights and how the laws of Jamaica can help you defend those rights. The program is brought to you on Mondays by the Bank of Jamaica, building an inclusive economy. Under the Law, Mondays at 6:20 a.m., 2:55, 6:45, and 9:10 p.m. on Love 101 FM.
There are a million reasons to want to own a home.
I want more space for the children.
I am tired of paying rent.
My wife and I want an investment. Go from future plans to keys in hand with an NCB mortgage. Get rates as low as 6.95%, 100% financing, and up to 40 years to repay. Plus, get the life insurance and home insurance you need all in one place. Visit myhome.jncb.com to get started. Conditions apply.
Okay, welcome back to the Morning Watch. Still trying to process that song that Shivani just played, Mosquito 1 and Mosquito 2. Heard somebody saying, pull up! Pull up! anyway, listeners, welcome back to the Morning Watch. We're going to take a look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And in the Gleaner, we see, first of all, citing virus as threat, Holness hints at vaccine mandate in future. And also ticking time bomb, COVID unmasks, deepening diabetes crisis across all ages. Also, we are seeing here what's new about MU, and that's the Greek word there for the latest variant that has been, the Greek letter rather, for the latest variant that has been found and discovered. In the Observer, There is no better way than Jamaica Way. New Jersey Street, renamed to honor contribution of Jamaicans to Paterson, New Jersey. And then WHO chief urges halt to booster shots for the rest of the year. And we also see that Jamaica developing national border security policy. Those are some of the major headlines in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp question. What do you think happens to the person who commits suicide? Please share responses on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM, and also whether by text or voice note to WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program. Soon come back.
After 11 weeks, 11 parishes, and 11 takeovers, we've got 2 more to go. And this Friday, September 10, you can watch the next tour excitement. Join Shavoni Blair, Love 101's youth ambassador, for our Youth Fellowship takeover at the Jamaica Bible Church at 6C Dumfries Crescent, St. Thomas. And it's brought to you by University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, fostering leadership and innovation. Shade Purified Drinking Water. Drink up, stay cool. Distinction College, providing opportunities for you. Chris and Charles, when you think loans, think Chris and Charles. The St. Thomas Youth Fellowship Takeover will be aired at 7 p.m. this Friday, September 10, on our social media platforms and here on Love 101, the family station. I love summer. It's time to explore.
It's alright, we got the green light. Let's go, let go, everyone's invited. Come
Has this season brought the feeling of fear, indifference, and unbearable pain to you? Do you feel as if your season of bereavement will never end? Does grief have an expiration date? It never does, but we have a date we don't want you to miss. It is the Truly Marvelous program to have and to hold this Thursday, September 9 at 5:30 p.m. with host Killeen Beckles and guest Pastor Napoleon Black as they take a look at dealing with grief and death in your marriage. That's the Truly Marvelous program that's designed to have and to hold marriages, and it happens this and every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. right here on Love 101, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's join Shavoni for a look at how our Facebook and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. What do you think happens to the person who commits suicide? Shavoni.
Well, a comment to this one says the mind is cumbered with thoughts of hopelessness, worthless, low self-esteem, no confidence, denial, fear, stress, and depression. A feeling no one, cares for me, or, they don't love me. My life has no value. Right? I think that's what I'm seeing here. There's a comment here on Facebook. This says, everyone morning, interesting topic. I have to try the fever grass because I have some mean mosquitoes.
Mosquito one and mosquito
two, right? Antonio Faces says, persons who commit suicide, their soul is lost forever. All right? Let's keep the conversation going.
Okay. Thank you, Shavoni. Thanks to those who responded. We appreciate every response that you make. All right. We are now segueing into the second watch. And tomorrow is World Suicide Prevention Day. World Suicide Prevention Day. And according to the World Health Organization, approximately 700,000 people commit suicide every year. And also for every suicide, there are many more persons who attempt it. Now, would you believe it? Euthanasia is reportedly legal in countries such as Belgium, Canada, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Spain, and several states in Australia. And this all begs the question, what are the ethical, social, and spiritual implications of these methods of dying? Well, to answer this and other related questions, we have joined us this morning Mrs. Faith Thomas, co-founder of Choose Life International, and the Reverend Canon Garth Minot, Deputy President of the United Theological College of the West Indies. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, Doc, and morning, Mrs. Thomas, and morning to your listeners.
Good morning, everyone.
Right, let me begin with you, Reverend Minot. How would you differentiate suicide vis-a-vis euthanasia?
Thank you so much, and good question. First of all, before I respond directly, just to make a rider that if any of your listeners is thinking about suicide, if the idea crosses their mind, I would really encourage them to seek help. There are lots of places that they can get help. Of course, the first order of business is to go to a hospital or a clinic. I know that these are under pressure these days with COVID, but go to your private doctor, or there are other facilities, counselors available. So I want to make that clear, and hopefully I get the chance to make it again before we finish this conversation, because I think that's very important. That there are persons who wrestle with this idea all the time, and they need to know that help is available to them.
Thank you.
The other thing is, you began your preamble with euthanasia and suicide. They're not the same thing. Euthanasia is assisted suicide, you could call it that. In other words, for euthanasia to take place, you have to have the help of someone else, because it's usually in a context of someone in a disabled position. They are not able to help themselves in many ways, and therefore you need someone to assist them in that regard. Whereas suicide is in the strictest sense, it's something that people usually inflict upon themselves. Sometimes you can get assistance, but not most times. No, that does not happen. Also, the Bible does not affirm nor condemn suicide. There are instances of suicide in the Bible, and my reading of it, for the most part, if you take, for example, like Saul in the Old Testament, who was mortally wounded, and because he didn't want to be disgraced or embarrassed by the enemies, he asked his armor bearer to assist him in falling on his sword. And of course, Judas, we know in the New Testament, after he handed over Jesus for crucifixion, he took the money that he got back, the 30 pieces of silver, back to the authorities. So Scripture doesn't condemn one way or the other, or doesn't affirm. It neither condemns nor affirms suicide. So this is something that I think we need to talk through. Yes, in the tradition of the church, people began to condemn it, certainly as the church evolved, but certainly from my reading of Scripture, I do not see any sort of condemnation.
Hold that thought right there, Canon, because we're going to come back to that. Mrs. Thomas, still with us?
I am here.
Yes. What are the main causes of persons having suicide ideation and subsequently committing the act?
All right, so there are a variety of causes why persons would want to take their own lives. There are physical causes, sometimes, especially in light of this particular conversation. Sometimes it is because of illness, and the person either perceives that they're going to suffer too long, or they are actually suffering. Then there are other reasons. There are sometimes domestic reasons. Perhaps there is domestic violence. Perhaps there is a breakup of the relationship and the person becomes despondent, depressed, and want to take their own lives.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Thomas. Could you just hold that thought, please? We are at a break. We'll be right back.
Sure.
Creating hope through action. Join us on Friday, September 10th, 2021, and hear from our selection of accomplished speakers on topics such as COVID-19 psychology and suicide risk, best practices for suicide prevention in the new normal, and many more. For more information, visit our website at www.chooselifeintl.org.
CIBC First Caribbean reminds you that our ABM cards will be deactivated on September 30, 2021 and upgraded to the Visa debit card. Your Visa debit card does everything your ABM card does and more. Use it at any ABM and to shop locally, internationally, and online with funds directly from your savings or checking account. Visit CIBCFCIB.com to sign up for a CIBC First Caribbean Visa debit card today.
You're invited to listen to Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. We'll give you tips on how to make your money count, how to save, and how to grow your worth. It's all inside Dollars and Cents, brought to you by BPM Financial Limited, taking you higher. That's Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. on the family station, Love 101.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at Genac.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
Genac.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
When everything is unpredictable, you go for what you can trust. That's why investors turn to blue chip companies. Jamaica, like the rest of the world, is caught between two possibilities: economic success or struggle. Many blue chip companies have a record of strong financial performance. Investing in these companies gives investors sound value and supports businesses which play a role in sustaining economic balance.
Visit barita.com/opportunities for more growth coach insights.
He knows my name.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of global crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today. 876-220-6474. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church.
This is a reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
He knows my name.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And in this, the second watch, we are discussing suicide and euthanasia, ethical, social, and spiritual implications. And we have online the Reverend Canon Garth Minor, Deputy President of UTCWI, and Mrs. Faith Thomas, co-founder of Choose Life International. Mrs. Thomas, before the break, you are responding to the question, what are the main causes for persons having suicide ideation and subsequently committing the act? Please go ahead.
Okay, so let me just start over.
Okay.
Persons who commit or who complete suicide
do so for varying reasons, and the different age groups normally have different reasons for attempting or completing suicide. As I was saying earlier, there are persons who are very ill or who perceive that they are going to be ill and suffer a lot, and therefore they think about and they sometimes attempt or complete the act of suicide. Then there is general depression and hopelessness and other mental health disorders. For younger people, like school children and all of that, there might be failing grades, school pressures, bullying, and then of course you have family conflicts, you have divorce, death, betrayal. Those are some other reasons.
Yes. Reverend Minot, you were on to, you're still muted, sir. Yes, you're on to talking about the Bible. And in our feedback, there are persons who, or at least one person, mentioned the whole matter of the person's soul being condemned or something to that, something in that region. What is your take on that in terms of persons who commit suicide or euthanasia?
Thank you so much. It's a good question. There are two ways I would comment it. One is, I think the psychiatric disciplines have long argued that suicide is a psychological issue, and therefore we should not be too quick to pass judgment on the state of a person's mind, a person's emotions, and theologically and spiritually, I would say we should not be too quick to pass judgment on a person's soul as they grapple with those issues. As Mrs. Thomas says, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, because we can't tell, and no two situations of suicide tend to be the same.
Yes.
And as I said, because of the psychological dynamics at work, I think we need to encourage more compassion and sympathy and solidarity rather than judgment and stigma and discrimination, etc. On the other side, I think the whole notion of forgiveness and love, we can't speak to someone who has died. We don't know their state and their state of mind, etc. So
Right.
I can't speak to the soul after someone dies. I don't know. But what I do know is, if you take, for example, Jesus and the two thieves on the cross, the one who approached him even in the moment of death and asked for compassion, Jesus says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Now, your listeners will argue that that was not a case of suicide, which I will agree with. I am simply making the point that when a person is at their most vulnerable, we need to be more and most compassionate. And that's my sense of Jesus with the thief on the cross. When people are at their most vulnerable, which is where you get to the suicide point, I think God is far more merciful than we tend to be. So I would not err on the side of a person losing their soul. I would err more on the side of God's increased mercy and compassion and forgiveness for persons at that point.
Yes. Mrs. Thomas, red flags. What red flags should we be mindful of in regards to suicide ideation?
All right, before we go to red flags, I'd love to weigh in on that previous question. I find that I agree with Canon. I find that there are many persons who, prior to attempting suicide, start to pray and ask God to forgive them prior to. So I know of persons who, like one young lady she took an overdose, and she called me and she said, I have taken an overdose and I don't want to die again. And so God was so good, we're able to get help for her. I know of somebody else who was in the act of hanging, and she changed her mind. And is that she was in a tree and trying to ease off the thing, and somebody heard the scratching sound and recognized what was happening. So we don't know. Only God knows the what is happening in a person's soul during that time.
Okay.
And God is able to deal with that. All right. So you asked about what
red
I
flags.
do.
Red flags.
Red flags, warning signs. Yes.
Yes. And we have only 4 minutes.
Okay. So if you find that someone is engaging in self-harm, cutting themselves, or any such behaviors, that's something that we should inquire what is happening with them. If they're making suicide threats, that they're going to be killing themselves or anything like that, that is a red flag. Or frequently talking about death, or putting up messages about death on Facebook or anything like that, about taking their lives. Sometimes people are preparing for death. That is a red flag. Sometimes persons have a drastic change in mood. They've been very depressed, and all of a sudden they just, without any assistance, any help, any intervention, they're just happy and all of that. That's a problem. They start to engage in withdrawing behavior. They start to stay by themselves and just continue to increasingly fall into depression, and they continue to say that I don't want to live. Those are some warning signs.
Yes. And
yes, elderly, if they start to put their lives together, change their investment portfolios and all kinds of things like that. That too can be a warning sign.
Yes. Canon, Minot, let's assume that the act has been committed. What would you say to the grieving families? Because I gather that at the funerals of persons who commit suicide, it's a whole lot different than the average funeral.
So this is where those of us who pastor in situations such as those need to be aware of the science, as I said earlier, in terms of the latest development in the science of psychology and psychiatry. We need to read again the scriptures, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of what does scripture have to say, or what does scripture has to say about the matter of suicide. And we need to dig deep into our faith and our tradition as to what we mean in terms of messages of forgiveness, compassion, mercy, etc. And then for those of us who are aware of grief and the stages of grief, we need to tap into that, because it's not just the family that is grieving, the community is also grieving. And therefore, when you come to like the funeral service, how you construct the service, what you say in terms of your preaching and the prayers that you lead, all of these things they can enable the healing and grieving process, or they can frustrate it. And so I would call for sensitivity on our part. And since I don't know if I speak again, I'd just like to reinforce what I said at the beginning, that if anyone is listening to this broadcast and is thinking of suicide, help is available. You can go to your nearest church, go to your pastor, go to the nearest hospital, clinic, your medical doctor, etc. Help is available at this time. Thank you.
Okay, we have to leave it there. I want to thank you both for joining us. Have a productive and blessed day.
Thank you very much. All the best now.
Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information how to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-9596-7. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Miss Kathy Gale, and our guests. I'm asking you to please join Mr. Stokely Marshall next week as he continues to look at the issues of the day. I'm Dylan Toussaint, reminding you to be purposeful, faithful, thankful, and watchful as I hand you back to Love in the Morning with Siobhan Blair.
The station is now 8 o'clock, and it's time for the program Forward in Faith, brought to you by the Portmore New Testament Church of God.